But you know what? We're going to talk today about this idea of overcoming prayerlessness. Because it's something, if we want to ratchet up the prayer at our church, then we need to talk about prayerlessness. And I don't know that any one of us is prayerless. As we said last week, everyone prays. And that looks different for some people. And it has different frequency for some people. But polls tell us pretty much everyone prays. It's a common practice for almost all people. 9 out of 10 people would say that they pray regularly. 3 out of 4 people say they pray daily. And indeed, earlier this year when we took the spiritual life survey, we discovered that basically 100% of people at Newday pray in some form or fashion at some time. Okay, so it's not that we are prayerless, but when we begin to ask questions like, how is your prayer life? What does it look like? How meaningful is it to you? Is it a significant part of your day? Are you kind of blocking off time to spend with God? Well, then we start to say, well, it could be better. It could be more meaningful. You know, I'm not really blocking off time for God, but I kind of talk with him in conversation throughout the day in little snips and as needed spontaneously. But I think a reality we could all probably agree with is that prayer is hard. Prayer is difficult. It's okay to say that out loud. We need to acknowledge it. To talk to a God who promises he's there, but we can't see him, and we usually can't hear him, and to have a conversation with a God like that requires some discipline. But it can't be all discipline. Right? Because if it's all discipline, then pretty soon you have a dry and boring relationship with somebody. So you need some spontaneity in the relationship, but it can't be all spontaneity, otherwise the relationship doesn't take priority. And so a prayer relationship with God is a lot like a communication with any other good friend. There needs to be some discipline, some scheduled time together so the relationship takes priority, but there needs to be some spontaneity that we can just kind of talk whenever we want. And so if we're going to overcome prayerlessness, or to grow in our prayer life, we need to begin to program regular times of prayer into our day. We can't just rely on the spontaneous, I pray throughout the day as needed route. That's a great thing. I'm not saying don't do that, but more is needed. We all need some discipline, some scheduled time of prayer. And we know this because Jesus needed scheduled times of prayer. As we look at the life of Jesus, we see that Jesus would pray spontaneously as needs kind of came his way throughout the day. He would stop and talk to his Father. He would ask for help. He would pray for someone to be healed. But we also see that Jesus regularly cut off time to get away by himself in solitude to be with his Father. That this was a way Jesus ordered his life. And if Jesus, the one who had the best relationship with the Father of anyone who has ever lived, needed some scheduled time set apart with his Father, how much more do I need to not just be spontaneous in my relationship with God, but to be somewhat scheduled and to set aside those times to get alone with him on a regular basis?